you're back. I was just wrapping up the best practice session ever with the best instrument ever, but I see that you're back for part 2, so let's get right into it. Now, creating a beautiful sound does not start with having the entire instrument together, so let's just take a look at the head joint and see what we can do with it. All right, so I have just my head joint here, so we're gonna do some exercise with it, but let's talk about how to create the embouchure as well. I highly recommend you use a mirror for this first activity. Now let's start off simple. So I'm gonna have you take your right hand and you're going to place it in front of you, creating a 90-degree angle here. And what we're going to do is we are going to just blow at the middle of our arm. So do that for a little bit. Now, without moving your head, hold it still. Try to blow down at your elbow. Let's try to do the same thing and blow it at the tips of our fingers. Keep trying that till you get used to it. Another exercise you can do is by taking your finger and going shh, shh, practicing that shh sound. Let's talk about some breathing exercises next. All right, so we're gonna start by placing our hands on our ribs, not at our hips, but at our ribs. And we are going to take a deep breath in. And while we're doing this, I'd like you to feel your rib cage expanding. So you can kind of see how my arms opened out a little bit. Just get a feel for that. Another way to see if you're using your air is by taking a little pinwheel and blowing at it and watching it spin. You could also use a candle and we could practice blowing really softly at it. So if you blow at it, you don't want to blow the candle out. You just want to see the flame flicker. Or you could try to use a lot of air with another exercise by blowing a piece of paper at a wall and holding it there. Important thing to remember. If you ever get dizzy or lightheaded while learning how to play the flute, feel free to take a break, take a breather. It can be a lot for beginners, so make sure you are taking breaks as needed. Now, I'm going to explain some words first before we get into actually holding the head joint. So we have our first word that is embouchure. Embouchure is your mouth position that we use to play any wind instrument. So it could be saxophone, clarinet, or flute, the coolest one. We have another word, aperture. Aperture is just the size of the opening in your mouth. So if I ever say smaller aperture, I mean smaller opening. Or if I say larger, bigger opening. Not that big though. And then our third word is kinesthetic, which is just another word for how it feels. Now, let's get our head balanced in the correct position. We are going to drop it down, roll it up, and balance it on the AO joint, which is a joint in the middle of your head. And we are going to clench our teeth really tight. And now take your fingers, and open the back teeth, We want a gap in those back teeth to create a nice, warm sound. All right, you know what time it is. That's right, head joint time, whoop whoop. Alrighty, just remember to place that opening to your right side. So how we're going to start is we are going to take this embouchure hole right here. We are going to place it underneath our chin, or underneath our lips on our chin. I'm gonna place it there, just get a feel for it. And then we roll up and out. You want your lip to cover part of the embouchure hole, about a third. And when we blow, we are going to use that embouchure and blow across the flute. This is where we practiced directing our air up and down. You may have to mess around with this a while before you can get a good sound. So let's start with covering this end with our palm, placing the embouchure on our chin, rolling up and out, and going. This may take a few tries. Mess with the size of your aperture. You may have to make it smaller, you may have to make it bigger. It depends on what you do initially. If you need to get a better feel for the embouchure, you can take your right hand, place it underneath your chin. This will give you the feeling of that. And then practice just blowing out. You should create slight air pockets right above your lip. They're very tiny, but they're air pockets nonetheless. Now, notice how I said we roll up and out. We avoid rolling down because this can create our lip getting smudged down like this so that it does not cover the embouchure hole. It can also cause us to tilt our head down and forward, which is really bad for creating a good sound on the flute. Now, the amount that your lip covers can vary based on people. There are some people that may have what's called a teardrop in their lip, and it's very hard to tell unless you are blowing into the flute. So what may have to happen is you may have to move it side one way or the other, just very slightly. I did it dramatically to show you on camera, but very slightly, and that may help. Practice going this way, going up, going down, rolling in, rolling out, directing your air. Just practice that and try to find the point. Keep bringing it down, bring it up, and try to find the point again. See how fast you can do it. Now let's try the same thing, but with an uncovered head joint. Wait, that sounded a lot higher. What do we need to do to get a good sound on that higher note? You're back with the great questions. I'm so glad to see you here. All right, let's talk about it real quick. So when we were playing higher notes, it requires more focused air. Now what I do to get focused air is I create a slightly smaller aperture, and I may have to direct my air slightly more up for those higher notes. You'll notice that I will pucker out a little more. Like think of like drinking from a regular sized straw and then drinking from a coffee straw. It's a bit different, the size, so we have to create the same thing, playing from low notes to high notes. That was me trying to maintain the same embouchure, and you could tell it didn't sound as good. Don't forget that this process takes a lot longer than what I'm showing you in this video, so feel free to pause, take some time to work out these steps, rewatch if you need, all that sorts of stuff, because this takes a while. It can be very frustrating at times, but just remember to be patient with yourself because it's hard. So let's do some little exercises going from the low note to the high note. So going from down here, going the O to the high ooh. Another fun thing we can do is we can treat this like a slide whistle. So while holding it, we can use our pinky finger. We can play high cross buns. It's a little tricky, but it sure is fun to do. Now, once you get through that first initial jump, let's try assembling the instrument, which I explained how to do in the first video. So if you need to go back and rewatch, I recommend. All right, our flute's assembled. It's gonna feel a little weird now trying to make a sound. You got this longer tube to create sound through, meaning you must use more air, more focused air to get it along the entire flute. Now get ready for this. I'm gonna be teaching you your first note ever. In our previous video, I showed you where your fingers go along the keys on our instrument. So I'm going to teach you how to play a middle D. So what we're going to do is we are going to use our thumb, preferably on this paddle key here, the OR key. We're going to use 2 and 3. And then on the right hand, we're gonna do 1, 2, and 3. So the fingers that are up are your left index finger, which I will call L1, your left pinky, and your right pinky. Every other note is covered. So now let's warm up these muscles here. These are called our orbicularis oris muscles. I know it's a big word. Practice saying it on your own. It's very fun. Sounds very impressive as well. So with that D, thumb, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. We're going to place it up on our face. on our chin, up and out. And we're going to do what are called rabbit exercises. So what we are going to do is we're just going to puff air. Feel free to let these muscles move. We are getting them warmed up for the act of playing this flute. Remember to maintain a balanced head. If you need to drop it again, roll it up to balance on the AO joint. Feel free to do so. We're gonna try some rabbit exercises on that D. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Now, having the entire instrument put together, it takes a lot more air to get through the entire flute. So just make sure you are taking breaks if you ever feel lightheaded again. Important reminder. And just remember to be patient again. This part can be very challenging. It is a lot different than playing on the shorter tube here. So just keep working at it and be patient with yourself. All right, I think it's review time. All right, so we talked about the direction of our air, using our arm, blowing at our elbow, blowing here, blowing everywhere without moving our head. Mostly when we play the flute, remember that our air mostly goes in the direction of our elbow. We talked about placing our hands on our rib cage, not our waist, but our rib cage, and feeling it expand while we breathe in, and how it comes back in when we exhale. We talked about creating the embouchure by going shh. We also talked about how there's a tiny air pocket that is created up here while you were playing. We grabbed our head joint, placing our right palm over the end of the flute, which is facing to our right, placing the embouchure on our chin, rolling up and out so that our bottom lip is covering part of the embouchure hole. Again, directing our air down with a frown in our embouchure, a slight frown, and blowing slightly down at the back wall, which is right there. We talked about going from to, and the difference from going O to oo, and how we have to create a more focused embouchure for getting higher notes. We put the flute together. We learned our first note, which is a D written on the staff, and we even went through our rabbit exercises. Hooray! You are off to the races, my friend. Get your flute, get to the practice room, and get working on some beautiful tone. Remember, everything takes time. Be patient with yourself and enjoy the journey, because this is very fun.